Let's get to this because I know that everyone has an opinion on it, including our viewers. We are starting today with a controversial new law that actually passed today in the House. It's a Parents' Bill of Rights that would guarantee parents access to information about their child's education. Some of those rights include full access to class curriculums, reading lists, library books, and the school's budget. Now, this does echo similar laws passed in states like Florida, but sometimes that parental control can come with unintended consequences. For example, this Florida principal who was forced to resign after receiving complaints from 3 parents. They were upset that Michelangelo's statue of David was being taught in 6th grade art history class because they said it was pornographic and upset their children. So what do we think of this new law, and should parents be able to control what's being taught in schools? Tori, you're an art history major. What do you think of this?
I studied in Florence for a year. I've seen the David up close and personal. And let me just say why that is such a famous piece is because Michelangelo himself, dissected cadavers, meaning he learned the anatomy of every muscle, every tendon, and it's accurate in the David. That is a change in art history. May I just say this really loud and clear? Pornographic material and nakedness is different than nudity. That is different in art. It is the obsession and beauty of the man and woman's body. That is part of how we create culture. And so for me, this is absurd, absurd. And what the parents are saying is, I don't know art. I don't know good art. That's what I'm hearing.
And we have here a former teacher in Florida. Can you imagine, Al, if you spent all this time becoming a teacher, getting your degree,
working
and then
hard,
it's pulled away from you because of a couple of parents complaining?
It's a few parents that aren't trained in your field as well. That's the crazy thing. You can tell that this is just people's objective opinion because they stick to what they know. No one has any comments about calculus or should we be teaching advanced algebra, because I'm assuming most parents can't do that. Can you do trigonometry? I can't. So there's not a lot of comments on that. Not a lot of comments about organic chemistry. Not a lot of comments about things that they don't understand, mapping out the cell of the human genome. But you can comment on art, because art is subjective. And while certain people are at work doing what they do, a few parents have now changed the course of the life of a principal forever, and that principal being fired sent out a warning shot to everybody else that has a job that if we don't like what you do, the minoritarian rule, a few people, 2-3 parents, can now determine what hundreds of kids learn. Is that the precedent that we want to set? I mean, it's terrifying. It's now granted, I don't think it's going to pass the Senate, so I do think a lot of this is performative. But that principal being fired isn't performative.
Right.
No. That principal, by the way, did anyone remember the National Geographic cover?
With the
eyes?
Girl, I thought the same thing.
She looks like
the
she has
eyes
the
are the
same
exact
eyes.
same. I thought the same thing.
That might be a reference people don't get, but I always remember that photo. There's a famous
iconic
photo.
Yeah,
and she has the same eyes. Anyways, you guys all said it perfectly. It's ridiculous. Like I said, I always gonna travel with my kids, show them the world, show them things that other people don't see, the poverty around the world, the nudity, the statues, the great works of art in the Vatican and at the Louvre. This is history. We have to learn from our history. This is art. You have to give your kids a full spectrum of what to expect in the world. Closing them off and letting 3 or 4 or 5 people dictate the curriculum, or what people say online dictates what gigantic companies are doing, or what in our own business people are saying or hiring or firing based on what such a small percentage of the country
who haven't
is thinking.
Put in the work.
It just blows my mind.
Right.
As big companies and sorry, I know we got to move on. But it's things like we need to stop listening to people like this. Stop giving the time of day to stories like this. Stop listening to 5% of people online saying this person needs to be canceled from the show. Stop it.
Yep. This is less than 5%.
This is
like 1%.
Yeah, a fraction of a percent.
Do you want to clarify that principal resigned because of the upset and the disrespect and the harassment?
That's the point.
Fair. All right. So let's get to another angle of this story that a lot of you have also weighed in on. It has a lot to do with the books that are allowed in libraries and schools. So last year, book bans reached an all-time high. According to the American Library Association, there were more than 1,200 challenges to books in libraries. Plus, librarians from all across the country have made complaints about being harassed or threatened with violence because of these books. If you take a look at the most banned books last year, now the majority include LGBTQ+ or racial themes. Meantime, a school district in Utah is meeting to discuss banning the Bible in schools. A parent complained the Bible included material that should be banned based on a new law about sensitive materials in schools. The parent argued the Bible contains stories about rape, incest, prostitution, and more, all of which is not appropriate for children. So what do we think about these books being banned? Should the Bible be included? I really quickly want to just crystal clear the two sides are. One side, mostly far-right conservatives, are saying that these books are grooming your children, while the progressives or the left are saying, no, these books are teaching inclusion and God, you know, if your child is struggling with some sort of identity crisis, sure, they are going to feel seen and represented. What do you think about books being banned?
In Germany, I was telling these guys before on the other show, in Germany in the 90s, 22% of Berlin high schoolers didn't know a lot about the Holocaust and what Berlin had contributed to the Holocaust. What did they do? Did they ban the books? Did they ban Elie Wiesel's Night? Did they ban museums? No. They made a mandatory schooling so that every child in Berlin knows exactly what happened in their history, because it won't happen again. We are raising an uneducated, uncultured group of citizenry that know nothing but what very few people want us to know, and therefore will be the stupidest generation in American history. We look like a joke, we're acting like a joke, and when you ban books, did you forget we fought fascism in World War II? We fought these guys. That's Nazism.
And Troy,
That's
what does
fascism.
Ignorance lead to?
Death, repetition. Ignorance leads to a repetition of what has happened in the past. And what saddens me most is what you could teach a kid like you. You said Catcher in the Rye really turned you on. That's what it's supposed to do.
I remember relating to it.
An eighth grade boy is supposed to understand Holden Caulfield. There's not a lot of boy books about it, about feelings, about teachers, about one of rebellion. He felt related. You can't teach Rosa Parks now in certain places. What are we doing?
And to your point about Berlin, and talking to relates with travel, I believe it was Berlin. When you go there,
it's all over.
It's under, like, they permanently, the papers that they spread around, the propaganda is under, you could see it like under glass,
yep,
and you're forced to learn it. And that made me learn about it when I traveled,
Thank
right?
you.
I didn't get it from a book, but that's traveling. If you cover that up, I don't learn that lesson.
You've lost it.
I'm not curious about what happened.
Correct.
I'm a very curious guy, and to tell my child what he can and can't read, and that there's going to be life lessons in these books,
right,
that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And if you want to erase the past, to Tori's point, you're going to repeat it.
And you're going to erase empathy. And that's what's the most alarming to me.
You're absolutely right.
Scary.
You're absolutely right.
Oh, my gosh.
I think that's on purpose.